Hi everyone, today I'm going to be talking about Cuisenaire rods. So Cuisenaire rods are these little, typically wooden sticks. There are 10, so it starts at the white, red, green, purple, yellow, green, dark green, black, brown, blue, and orange. Each of the rods are 1 centimeter, so it goes from 1 centimeter all the way to 10. Cuisenaire rods were invented by Georges Cuisenaire in 1945 to give students a sensory experience with math. He actually was an elementary school teacher, but he also taught piano, and he wanted to give students a hands-on experience with math, kind of like they do when they're learning music. There are so many ways that you can use Cuisenaire rods. I actually had a really hard time choosing a standard, so I kind of picked a few that I'm going to go through, but just some things that I learned while I was researching them. Typically they're wooden. It's recommended that you get wooden ones and not plastic rods because you can use them when like working on scales, and the wooden ones tend to have a more evenly distributed weight from 1 centimeter to 10 centimeters. Also, I noticed when I was going through the pack that there's some color differentiations within. I wasn't a big fan of that. Like, I probably in my classroom would make sure that like the whites were with the whites, the greens were all the same shade, just to make it a little more unified. Also, I did see that for colorblind students, they recommended that like for the white, you just put a W, green, a G, just so that they can still identify them easily, not just by the size, but by some sort of marker. So these rods can be used for so many things. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, ratios, like there's an insane amount. Like I said, as I was going through standards, there were so many. So the first standard that I'm going to talk about, actually that gives you the measurement as well. So 1 centimeter to all the way through 10. Another thing I did want to mention, that it does go 1 through 10, but it's not like an absolute value. When you're working with Cuisenaire rods, typically like your white's going to be 1, but it could also be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, up to 20. The orange could be considered 1, and so then like if you consider this a 1 as your unit, you could use orange as a half, or I'm sorry, yellow as a half, and then so on like that. So typically, when you're using them, kids will count 1 through 10, or that's how they're referred to, but the value can be anything. The white could be a 3, the white could be 100, up to 1,000, whatever you want it to be. So the first standard that I wanted to talk about was a kindergarten standard: compose, put together, and decompose, break apart numbers up to 10 using objects or drawings. So these are a perfect object. So if we consider this orange one is 10, you can work with the numbers you could break it down into 10 little whites. Y'all bear with me, I'm sorry. But there we go. Maybe. Okay, so we could break it down that way. You could break it down in half, so 2 5s. You could break it down as 2s. So this would give kindergarten students a visual of breaking the number down. So how many different numbers can make 2, the fact that all of these are equivalent or equal to each other. There we go. They could be equivalent, or it could be not equivalent. So if we did like a 4 and a 6, that would equal 10. Let's see. So that was the first standard. You could use that with just talking about the number 10. I know that's like a big thing. It's just number sense in kindergarten. So just getting an idea of what 10 is and the numbers that are involved in making 10. Let's see. Another standard that I found Was fluently add and subtract within 5 using a variety of strategies to solve practical mathematical problems. So again, you could start with 5, build it up to 5, 5 ones is 5, or a 3 and a 2. So that would be an easy way to meet a kindergarten standard. I did, as I was researching too, and coming across the kindergarten standards, I saw a video that mentioned just giving them the blocks and letting them sort the colors. Also, another thing that I saw for kindergarten that was that I liked was that you could use them. I found this on Teachers Pay Teachers, of course, the best. Longest to shortest. So you could use the blocks in a measuring unit. The blank block is the shortest block, so the white block would be the shortest block, and so on. And that would help them to compare the lengths of the blocks. And it kind of, it's easy with the colors. While I'm still in kindergarten, I did do something. When I was researching these, another thing that was mentioned quite a few times was using them outside of math. For instance, for for ELA, you could use them like as syllables. So if you said this is cat, it'd be k-at, and it could be a manipulative for them to move it over for the syllables. Also, earlier tonight, my daughter was doing sight words, and she decided that when she said the word, she was going to put a block. And then we kind of talked about it and said that the red is twice as much as the white. And so then when she got to a hard word, such as started, she would put a red to kind of remind herself, well, this is a harder word. It might be twice as hard as the others. So she marked those with a red as we were going along. And I just thought that was like a fun little way to use the manipulatives in a different way. Let's see, it keeps going out. There was a first grade standard explained that the 2 digits of a 2-digit number represent the amounts of tens and ones. So if we go back to using the orange rod as a 10, you could talk about building a 2-digit number. So let's say you just wanted to build 11. So that would represent 10, and you add 1 and you have 11. Or if you wanted to build 3, it could be like that. And again, you could line these up on the other side to kind of give them an idea. That might be a little bit easier when they're first starting. Oop. So when we're lining up 10 ones, hold on one second, let me get them straight. Okay, so if we've got 10 ones, it equals our 10, and then kind of added numbers. So we could look at it and know that that's 13. So that's a good way, a hands-on way when they're working with those numbers, especially in the teens when they kind of get confused, to be able to represent those with manipulatives. Let's see. A 3rd grade standard represents single-digit multiplication and division facts using a variety of strategies. Explain the relationship between multiplication and division. So I know that these are used a lot with multiplication and division. I was kind of focusing on kindergarten since that's where I'm going, but I did want to mention this as well. When I was thinking about the rods and lining them up and thinking in the fact that they don't necessarily, they can be any unit. I think it's a great way to build multiplication facts. Like I said, if you start with 2, 4, 6, 8, and going up. Another way, hold on one second. So with the represent the single digit multiplication and division facts, so we've got our 10, right? So 10 divided by 5 would be 2. 10 divided by 2 would be 5, and then 10 divided by 1 would be 10. So this is a great way as a manipulative to think about multiplication, and then they could turn around and say 1 times 10 is 10, 2 times 5 is 10, and then 5 times 2 is 10. So just different ways that you can think about using these in different standards and different grades. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really impressed with Cuisenaire Rods. There were so many resources online to help you. There were so many worksheets available, just different things, fun things that they could build it and then break the numbers down, adding them up. There were measurement tools, so I would highly recommend buying a few sets for your class, as many as you could. You definitely can integrate the rods into different subjects, and thank you guys so much.